We've all been there. It's 2 a.m. and you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling. You replay a conversation from earlier. You think about the email you forgot to send. You worry about the future, the job, the expectations, the failures. You think worrying will prepare you, but it doesn't. Worry is the illusion of control. It's the brain's way of trying to solve problems that don't even exist yet. Here's the truth. Worry does not lead to clarity. It leads to confusion. It doesn't prepare you, it paralyzes you. Worry whispers that if you think about something long enough, you'll control the outcome. But it's a trap. Success doesn't come from obsessing over what might go wrong. It comes from taking action despite what might go wrong. You want to build something great? You want to lead? Then stop worrying and start moving. The most successful people aren't fearless. They just act while afraid. Worry is passive. It's standing still in a burning building, wondering where the exit is. Courage is not the absence of worry. It's choosing movement in spite of it. Think about it. When have you ever made your best decision from a place of anxiety? When have you ever felt creative, calm, focused while worrying? You haven't. And you won't, because worry chokes growth. It clutters your thoughts. It makes you reactive, not proactive. It makes you ask, what if I fail? But the better question is, what if I don't try? You don't get to live a meaningful life by constantly preparing for things that may never happen. You earn success by committing to what you can do today and letting go of what you can't control tomorrow. Let me tell you something important. You will fail, you will mess up, you will face rejection. But that's part of the process. You can't hack growth without discomfort. Worrying doesn't make the road smoother. It just makes the journey slower. The people who build the future are not the ones who worry their way to the top. They're the ones who step forward, even when the path is foggy. So if you want to succeed, don't ask what could go wrong. Ask what's the next right step I can take right now. Let go of the mental noise. Stop trying to predict every twist and turn. Stop waiting for perfect clarity. You don't need all the answers. You need belief, action, and the willingness to adjust as you go. Worry never leads to success. Action does. So take a breath, let go of what you can't control, and take the next step forward. The future belongs to those who act, not those who worry. Worry is the illusion of control. It feels productive. It feels like preparation. It feels like you're doing something, mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios, analyzing every angle, replaying past mistakes. But in reality, worry doesn't change outcomes. It doesn't prevent problems. It doesn't equip us with better tools. What it does is steal our time, our peace of mind, and our ability to act clearly in the present. The reason worry feels so addictive is because it gives us a false sense of control. When things feel uncertain, a job interview coming up, a conversation we're dreading, a future we can't predict, our minds try to anchor to something. So we worry. We think that if we imagine every possible outcome, if we stress enough over it, maybe, just maybe, we can influence it. But worry is just mental noise, masquerading as problem solving. It convinces us we're doing something when we're actually doing nothing at all. There's a big difference between preparation and worry. Preparation is grounded in action. You identify what needs to be done, make a plan, and execute. Worry, on the other hand, loops. It's circular. You think the same thoughts again and again, like a car stuck in the mud, spinning its wheels. It doesn't move you forward, it just burns out your mental energy. Preparation is proactive. Worry is reactive. Worry also feeds off fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of loss. And because fear is so emotionally charged, we mistake the intensity of our feelings for the accuracy of our thoughts. But intense fear doesn't mean danger is real. It just means your brain is trying to protect you, often from threats that don't even exist yet. The mind is amazing at imagining worst-case scenarios, but terrible at predicting the actual future. Think about how many hours you've spent worrying in your life. How much of it ever made things better? How much of it prevented the thing you were afraid of? Probably none. and yet we do it again and again. It's because worry gives us a sense of control, a sense that we're doing something without the risk that comes with real action. You can worry about starting a business for 5 years and never fail. But that's only because you never started. Worry protects your ego, but it also prevents your growth. The truth is, we cannot control everything. Life is uncertain. People will let us down. Plans will change. Things will go wrong. But trying to micromanage life by worrying about every detail does not lead to mastery. It leads to anxiety. Control is a myth. All we really have is influence over the present moment. That's where our power lies, in what we choose to do now. Worry distracts us from that. It takes our attention away from what we can do, and traps us in what we might not be able to handle later. If we truly want to reclaim our peace and our power, we have to let go of the illusion that worry gives us control. Real strength is being able to say, I don't know what will happen, but I trust that I'll handle it when it does. That's not passivity. That's courage. It's presence. And presence is what leads to clarity, to creativity, and to real confidence. You don't need to worry to be prepared. You don't need to worry to be responsible. You need to act, to reflect, to adjust. That's how you lead yourself forward. Worry is loud, but wisdom is quiet. And when you let go of the need to control everything, you make room for progress, not perfection. Let worry go. It never had control in the first place. Success requires action, not overthinking. No matter how intelligent, talented, or well-intentioned someone is, nothing replaces the power of doing it. You can sit with an idea, polish it in your head, imagine every possible scenario, plan for every outcome. But if you don't act, nothing changes. Nothing improves. Nothing is built. Success doesn't reward potential, it rewards movement. Overthinking is one of the most clever ways fear disguises itself. It feels like you're being responsible, like you're being thorough. You convince yourself you're just making sure everything is perfect, or that you're waiting for the right time. But more often than not, overthinking is just procrastination dressed up as productivity. It's fear avoiding failure. Because as long as the idea stays in your head, it's safe. It can't be judged. It can't flop. It can't disappoint. But it also can't succeed. Real progress happens when you get your hands dirty, when you take a step forward even if you don't know the whole path, when you risk getting it wrong so that you can start learning what's right. No one has ever created anything great just by thinking about it. Every author who wrote a best-selling book had to write a bad first draft. Every business that changed the world started with someone taking an imperfect first step. Every athlete who stood on a podium once stood in a room full of doubt and fear. But they moved anyway. Action creates momentum. It builds confidence. It shows you what works and what doesn't. When you move, the fog starts to lift. The fear starts to shrink. The answers begin to reveal themselves. But none of that happens in your head. It only happens when you begin. People often wait for clarity before taking action. But the truth is, clarity comes from taking action. Movement is what sharpens vision. Overthinking, on the other hand, leads to paralysis. You become so consumed by the what-ifs that you forget to ask what now. You try to predict the future instead of influencing it. You hesitate at every decision, fearing the consequences more than you trust your ability to adapt. But success doesn't demand certainty. It demands courage. And courage isn't about knowing how everything will turn out. It's about stepping forward without knowing and trusting that you'll figure it out along the way. People don't regret the mistakes they made as much as the chances they didn't take. You can recover from failure. You can learn from it. You can grow because of it. But you can't grow from inaction. You can't learn from silence. Waiting until you feel ready is a trap, because readiness isn't a feeling. It's a result. And that result only comes from starting. The people who succeed are not always the smartest. They're not always the most experienced. But they are the ones who show up, who try, who fail, who adjust, and who try again. They don't waste years chasing the perfect plan. They build, they launch, they learn, And through that messy, uncertain process, they improve. The world doesn't reward those who think the longest. It rewards those who do the most. Not blindly or recklessly, but consistently and bravely. So stop trying to engineer the perfect beginning. Start with what you have. Do what you can. Let the path unfold as you walk it. You can't think your way into success. You have to act your way there. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. Too often people believe that they need to eliminate fear before they can take action. That somehow when they're ready, the fear will disappear and clarity will take its place. But that moment rarely comes. Fear doesn't vanish on its own. If you wait for fear to leave, you'll wait forever. Fear is a natural part of doing something that matters. When you step outside of your comfort zone, when you challenge yourself, when you put something on the line, your mind will react. It will warn you, try to protect you, tell you to back off. That's normal. Fear is hardwired into us for survival. But courage is the ability to say, I see the fear, I hear the voice, but I'm going to move anyway. The truth is, no one doing anything worthwhile ever feels completely fearless. The people who give powerful speeches still feel nervous. The entrepreneurs who build companies still fear failure. The artists who share their work still feel vulnerable. But they act anyway. They don't wait for perfect confidence. They understand that fear isn't a sign to stop. It's a signal that they're stepping into something important. Courage is not loud. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a quiet voice that says, try again tomorrow. Sometimes it's just showing up, making the call, sending the email, taking the first step. It's doing what needs to be done even while your hands shake and your voice trembles. Courage is showing up even when your mind gives you 100 reasons not to. The problem is, many people confuse fear with failure. They think that if they feel afraid, it means they're not ready, that something must be wrong. But fear is not failure. It's feedback. It means you're stepping into new territory, and nothing new is ever mastered without discomfort. Growth is always preceded by fear. Always. The bigger the risk, the bigger the stretch, the louder the fear. But also the bigger the opportunity. Think about it. The moments in your life that made you proud, that made you grow, were they comfortable? Probably not. They were scary. They were uncertain. But you faced them. You moved through them. And you became more because of them. That's courage. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be controlled by it. Fear will always be there. It will whisper that you're not good enough, not ready, not smart enough, not qualified. Courage is the voice that answers, maybe, but I'm doing it anyway. That's where real confidence is born. Not from waiting for fear to leave, but from proving to yourself that you can act with it present. You don't need to be fearless to lead. You don't need to be fearless to succeed. You just need to decide that what you're pursuing is more important than staying comfortable. You have to believe that the cost of staying stuck is higher than the discomfort of moving forward. Because it is. So take the leap, make the choice, speak up, show up, apply, create, begin. Not because you don't feel afraid, but because you've decided that fear doesn't get to run your life. Courage is not something you wait for, it's something you choose. And every time you act despite fear, you take back your power. You rewrite your story. And over time, fear starts to lose its grip. Not because it goes away, but because you've stopped giving it permission to hold you back. Worry paralyzes growth and creativity. It keeps your mind stuck in a loop of doubt, fear, and imagined problems. When you're worrying, you're not creating, you're not growing, you're not learning, you're simply existing in a mental space where possibility is replaced by paralysis. And while it might feel like you're being responsible by thinking everything through, what you're really doing is putting your energy into fear rather than into forward motion. Growth requires risk. It requires curiosity. It requires the willingness to step into the unknown and try something new, knowing full well that it might not work. Creativity comes from a sense of openness, from experimenting, from being free to explore without judgment. But worry is the opposite of that. Worry shrinks your world. It replaces bold questions with anxious what-ifs. It tells you not to try because you might fail. It tells you not to speak up because you might be judged. It tells you not to start because you're probably not ready. The mind consumed by worry is not a mind that creates, it is a mind that calculates, second guesses, and overanalyzes. It becomes so busy anticipating failure that it forgets what it's even trying to build. Worry hijacks your attention. Instead of thinking about what's possible, you're constantly bracing for what could go wrong. That kind of mindset blocks innovation. It kills momentum. It makes you play small. Creativity doesn't thrive under fear. It thrives under freedom. It needs room to breathe. It needs the courage to get it wrong, the patience to try again, and the confidence to believe that even a failed attempt is part of the process. When you worry, you demand perfection before progress. But growth never begins at perfect. It begins at willing. Willing to start. Willing to risk. Willing to grow. The most powerful ideas often start as imperfect thoughts. They're raw. They're unclear, but they take shape through action, through doing, through failing, through reworking. Worry interrupts that process. It convinces you that the idea isn't good enough to begin, that your voice isn't strong enough to be heard, that you need more time, more proof, more certainty. But those things never fully arrive until after you've taken the first step. Growth also depends on mindset. A person who is constantly worrying tends to view mistakes as disasters instead of lessons. They hesitate to take feedback because it feels like a threat. They avoid challenges because the thought of failure feels too overwhelming. But someone who is committed to growth sees failure as information. They view effort as the pathway to mastery. They understand that progress doesn't come from sitting on ideas. It comes from building them out loud. You cannot create anything meaningful while trying to eliminate every risk. You cannot grow into your potential while avoiding every mistake. Worry wants to protect you, but in doing so, it limits you. It may keep you safe, but it also keeps you small. When you let go of worry, you give yourself permission to try, to explore, to be curious. That's where creativity lives, in the space between certainty and chaos, in the willingness to say, I don't know how this ends, but I'm going to begin anyway. And that's also where growth lives, not in perfection, but in progress, not in having it all figured out, but in showing up again and again. You don't have to silence worry completely. That may never happen, but you can choose not to let it lead. You can feel the fear, hear the doubts, and still create, still grow, still try, because worry may be loud, but your purpose is loud. You can't control everything, and that's not a weakness, it's a truth. The sooner you accept it, the more power you'll actually have. Life is unpredictable. People will surprise you. Plans will fall apart. And circumstances will shift without warning. But the more you try to control everything around you, the more overwhelmed, frustrated, and anxious you'll become. The key isn't to control it all. The key is to focus on what you can do, right now, in this moment. Trying to control everything is exhausting. You end up constantly managing other people's opinions, outcomes you can't predict, and futures you can't guarantee. It creates a constant state of tension, a sense that if you stop trying for even a moment, everything will fall apart. But that's not sustainable. And more importantly, it's not effective. The truth is, no matter how much you prepare, worry, or plan, life will still throw you curveballs. You cannot force the world to cooperate. What you can do is decide how you'll respond. You always have a choice in how you show up. You have control over your mindset, your actions, your words, your focus, your effort. That's where your real power is. The mistake is thinking that control comes from managing the external. In reality, control is internal. It's being calm in the chaos. It's being grounded when things fall apart. It's saying, I may not have power over this situation, but I can choose how I behave in it. When you focus on what you can do now, you create momentum. You stop spinning your wheels worrying about the outcome, and instead, take the next right step. That's how real progress happens. Not by obsessing over the finish line, but by taking meaningful action one moment at a time. You can't solve every problem in one day. You can't build a dream overnight, but you can write the first page, make the first call, take the first step. That's how all change begins. The danger of trying to control everything is that it keeps you stuck in the future, always thinking about what might go wrong. And when you're living in the future, you're missing the only place where you can actually make a difference. The present is where you build. It's where you grow. It's where you make decisions that shape your life. But you can't be present and panicked at the same time. You have to choose, focusing on what you can do now, also builds resilience. Because when life doesn't go the way you planned, you won't break. You'll bend. You'll adapt. You'll say, okay, that didn't work. What can I try instead? That's how strong people think. They don't waste energy on what's outside of their hand. They stay anchored to what's within their reach. Let go of the myth that you need control to feel secure. What you need is trust in yourself, in the process, in your ability to handle whatever comes. You've already survived so many hard things. You've already overcome so much. You're stronger than you think, and you'll be okay, even when life doesn't go according to plan. So stop chasing certainty. Start building consistency. Start asking, what can I do right now that moves me forward? It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be honest. Control isn't the goal. Clarity is. And clarity comes when you stop trying to manipulate the future and start making the most of the present. You can't control everything, but you can control this moment, and that's enough. Success belongs to the doers, not the worrier. The people who move forward in life aren't the ones who spend their time overthinking, second guessing, or obsessing over what might go wrong. They're the ones who act, the ones who start before they feel ready, the ones who are willing to be seen trying, even if they understand a simple but powerful truth. You don't get results from thinking about something. You get results from doing something. Worry creates a false sense of productivity. It feels like you're working on the problem, because your mind is constantly busy. But being busy is not the same as being effective. You can spend hours worrying about a decision and be no closer to a solution. You can spend days thinking about launching a project and still be exactly where you started. Worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do but gets you nowhere. Doers, on the other hand, understand that progress is made by taking the next step, even if it's messy, uncertain, or imperfect. They take action not because they have all the answers, but because they know answers often come after action, not before. They learn as they go. They fail, adjust, and try again. That's the rhythm of real growth. There's no shortcut, no perfect plan that guarantees success. The only guarantee is that nothing happens until you begin. Worriers often wait for the perfect moment. They believe that if they wait long enough, the fear will disappear, the plan will be flawless, and success will be guaranteed. But that moment never comes. The perfect time is a myth. The stars never align just right. The best time to start is almost always before you feel completely ready. Because readiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through doing. Fear of failure often drives worry. But failure is not what stops people in action. Every successful person has failed more times than most people have even tried. What separates them isn't luck or genius. It's persistence. It's their decision to take the shot, make the call, write the first draft, or step on stage, even with trembling hands and a racing heart. They know fear is part of the process, not a reason to stop. Worry is rooted in the future. It's focused on everything that might go wrong. Doers stay anchored in the present. They ask, what can I do today? They focus on what's in their control, their effort, their choices, their next step. That mindset creates movement, and movement creates results. Every breakthrough starts with a beginning. Every success story is built on a foundation of consistent effort, not perfect effort, just consistent, honest, forward-moving effort. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to do what you can with what you have. That's what doers do. They start where they are. They trust the process, and they keep going, even when it's hard. Worriers talk themselves out of opportunities. Doers create their own. Worriers fear failure. Doers embrace the lessons that come with it. Worriers wait. Doers work. That's the difference. And over time, that difference becomes everything. So if you want to succeed in business, in relationships, in personal growth, stop waiting for certainty. Stop fueling the fear. Take the leap. Make the call. Post the content. Launch the idea. Try. Even if you fail, you're still ahead of the one who never started. The world rewards action, not anxiety. Results come to those who move, not those who hesitate. Success will never come to you just because you thought about it enough. It will come because you did something about it. Because in the end, success doesn't belong to the ones who worry. It belongs to the ones who do.